To you, O Lord, I lift up my soul. O my God, in you I trust. Do not let me be ashamed. Do not let my enemies exult over me. Indeed, none of those who wait for you will be ashamed. Those who deal treacherously without cause will be ashamed. Make me know your ways, O Lord. Teach me your paths. Lead me in your truth and teach me. For you are the God of my salvation. For you I wait all the day. Remember, O Lord, your compassion and your loving kindnesses, for they have been from of old. Do not remember the sins of my youth or my transgressions. According to your loving kindness, remember me, for your goodness' sake, O Lord. Good and upright is the Lord, therefore he instructs sinners in the way. He leads the humble in justice, and he teaches the humble his way. All the paths of the Lord are loving kindness and truth to those who keep his covenant and his testimonies. For your name's sake, O Lord, pardon my iniquity, for it is great. Who is the man who fears the Lord? He will instruct him in the way he should choose. His soul will abide in prosperity, and his descendants will inherit the land. The secret of the Lord is for those who fear him, and he will make them know his covenant. My eyes are continually toward the Lord, for he will pluck my feet out of the net. Turn to me and be gracious to me, for I am lonely and afflicted. The troubles of my heart are enlarged. Bring me out of my distresses. Look upon my affliction and my trouble, and forgive all my sins. Look upon my enemies, for they are many, and they hate me with violent hatred. Guard my soul and deliver me. Do not let me be ashamed, for I take refuge in you. Let integrity and uprightness preserve me, for I wait for you. Redeem Israel, O God, out of all his troubles. Good morning, family. It's Monday, May 11th, 2020, and that was Psalm 25. And that would be a good prayer for us to pray every day. That's just an acknowledgement of sin, thankfulness that our transgressions have been forgiven, a calling out for God to guide us and lead us, a recognition that he is our Savior. That would be a good prayer to pray each and every day. This morning, we are looking at the book of 2 Kings, chapter 4. In it, you will find Elisha performing several miracles. And one thing that I want to point out and have us look at this morning is located in verse 26. I read through Matthew Henry's commentary this morning on this chapter, and he made a good point regarding this verse. And I think it's something, it's a lesson that we ought practice and ask God to show us grace and to be able to do this. Verse 26 says, "Please run now and meet her and say to her," and this is Elijah speaking to his servant Gehazi. He says, "Please run now to meet her and say to her, 'Is it well with you? Is it well with your husband? Is it well with the child?' And she answered, 'It is well.'" So this verse comes on the heels of Elijah having prophesied that this woman would be blessed from God with a child within a year. It happened, and then apparently sometime later, the child fell ill and passed away. And the Shunammite woman goes to Elisha and is seeking help from him because he's a man of God. And so when asked if everything was well, she says, "It is well." And so what this speaks to is the idea of what, it's something that we speak of often in our home. We remind ourselves of this frequently. And unfortunately, far too often we find ourselves not truly believing what we say we believe. But it's the idea that whatever may come, whether death, whether abundant life, whether blessings, whether feast, whether famine, a period of health or a period of illness, poverty, wealth, whatever may come. It's the idea that all things are working together for the good of those who love God, who are called according to his purpose. This woman, though her son had died, though she was coming to the man of God to appeal to him for some kind of help in this circumstance, she can rightfully say that it is well. It's like that song says, "It is well with my soul." We can rightfully say that no matter what happens to us, and things are going to happen to us, right? We know that times of suffering will come in this life, whether it's illness or the suffering of the loss of a loved one, the suffering that comes from a loss of work, not having enough to eat. You look at our land right now, and there's lots of suffering going on. There's people that are being tormented by their own conscience. They're being tormented by the prospect of getting some disease. There are all kinds of things going on in the world right now, in which it would be easy for us. It would be very easy for us to fall into a pattern of complaining and ungratefulness and unthankfulness, and not recognizing that though all these things are going on, that it is still well. It's still well with us. And only the Christian can say that. Only the Christian can have that kind of peace. Only the Christian can have that perspective and that outlook, because we know that all things are working together for our good. Now, like this woman here, the Shunammite, she called out to God through the prophet Elisha, and that's not inconsistent. When a loved one gets sick, when a job is lost, when financial hardship comes, when disease comes, or car accidents happen, or whatever the case might be, families separate because of sin or something like that. We can both mourn those things. We can have a season of sorrow and suffering, and a recognition that this thing is terrible and not good and not normal. And in the same breath, say, "It is well, because these things are meant for my good." That's not a contradiction. It's not a contradiction. It's like when in the book of Hebrews, it talks about how earthly fathers discipline their children, and they discipline them in the way that seems right to them, and all discipline is painful for a season, right? But discipline, true discipline, not a beating, right? Not a abusive thing, but actual discipline, godly discipline, meant to correct, meant to teach, meant to instruct. It's meant for our good. And it is painful for a season. And we could acknowledge that pain. We could acknowledge that discomfort. We could acknowledge that this thing that has happened has caused sorrow. Just like this woman here, the Shunammite, surely she was sorrowful that her son had died. And yet it is well. And so that's my encouragement to you. We don't know what this day holds. We don't know what the next 30 seconds holds, right? We don't know what's waiting for us tomorrow. But we ought prepare ourselves now to say it is well, that no matter what may come, that all things are working together for the good of those who love God, who are called according to his purpose. I keep thinking back to some of the things we were talking about yesterday with Stonewall Jackson, and how all the way to the very end, he had lost his arm, he got pneumonia, but all the way to the end, he acknowledged that whatever happened, that it was by the providential hand of God, that it was meant for his good, and that he was content and at peace with that. And he encouraged others around him to be at peace with that as well, and to not fret and to not worry, that everything was well, that it was happening the way that God had ordained that it would happen. And so my prayer for you and myself today is that we can have this outlook on life, that we can have this perspective of things, that we will have faith in God and trust him and trust that whatever happens, there's this cheesy worldly thing that, it's one of those new age, quotes or sayings, that everything happens for a reason. Have you heard that before? Well, there's a grain of truth to that, right? Everything does happen for a reason because God has ordained it. And everything that happens is meant for the good of those who love God, who are called according to his purpose. And so my prayer today is that we will grab hold of that promise. It's a huge promise, because when it's talking about all things working together for our good, it's talking about everything that happens, everything that goes on, every circumstance in life, all things are working together for our good. So let's meditate upon that today. I love you all. I pray you have a blessed day. Pray for me as I have to go to work today and put on these masks, and just pray that I'll be faithful to speak the truth and walk as a Christian among unbelievers. And my prayer for you today will be that God's grace and love will abound in our home, and that you'll love one another, and that you'll glorify God, and let your light shine before men. You are the salt of the earth. You are the light of the world. And so let's live our lives in that manner today, being salty and shining the light of Christ. God bless you. I love you all very much. Have a good day. Bye-bye.